Howdy, guys, and welcome to Survivor Season 41's recap of Episode 5. And welcome to Cliff Notes from somewhere off the island. I hope y'all are doing fantastic. Man, another episode, action-packed, all kinds of things going on. But before we talk about that, let's talk just real quickly about what happened last week. If y'all recall, Team UA went to tribal council. Only 4 people left in this tribe. So we're seeing the numbers drop fairly quickly, and it's dropping even more because they went to tribal council last week. We lost JD from the tribe. I hated to see that. JD was one of my winner picks at the beginning of the season. No more. JD is gone. He trusted the wrong people and he paid the price. But not only is JD gone, but we now have Shan, who has JD's extra vote. If you recall, he gave it to Shan as a way to show how much he trusted her. Well, that didn't work out so well for JD. He's gone. Shan now has his extra vote. Shan's looking like she's in a pretty good position. So with that being said, let's talk about this episode this week. We start off seeing Team UA coming back from tribal council. They're down to 3 people. We've seen in past seasons where we had a tribe go down from 3 to 2, eventually just 1 person left. We'll see if that happens this week or not, but certainly they're down to 3. Meanwhile, Team Lulu's still up at 6 people, so a little disparity between the tribes. But we've got Team UA coming back from tribal council. Jeannie is talking about how happy she is that she teamed up with Ricard and Shan to vote out JD. She has to understand that she's at the bottom of this particular totem pole of 3 people, right? The Ricard and Shan are so tight. Jeannie's in a bad position. Now, I don't know if it would have made a difference if Jeannie had done something else, if she had voted with JD and tried to send Ricard out the door. I don't think it would have mattered. Jeannie maybe did what had to be done in order to stick around for another week, but she's going to be the bottom of the totem pole no matter who the other 2 people are that are left in that tribe with her. So we'll see what happens. But again, Jeannie's in a little bit of trouble. But Salvation sometimes does some amazing things. And in Jeannie's case, she gets a little gift from above because she finds the 3-way immunity idol advantage. Now, remember, JD had this advantage, but once he got booted out the door, it came back into play. Jeannie finds this thing. It's just what she needed for a little protection, right? So it's the 3-way immunity idol. They think you don't know until you open it up. And that's the problem, because once you open this advantage up, you also pay the price. There's a risk that goes along with opening it up. Now, Jeannie has found this thing. She immediately tells Ricard and Shan that she's found it. And I don't get why you do that. When there's only 3 of you, when you're at the bottom of the group, I don't know why you tell everyone else. I guess maybe she's thinking it buys a little bit of goodwill and such. And I got to be thinking that for all 3 of these tribal members, they have to be thinking that because their numbers are getting so small, there could be a swap or a merge or something happening at some point, not so far down the road. So maybe Jeannie's thinking that she needs to buy some goodwill from these 2 before that happens, and maybe it'll help her on down. I don't know, but I wouldn't have told anyone that I found that advantage. But Jeannie has told Shan and Ricard. And not only that, but now she's debating, because it comes with a risk, a penalty in addition to the advantage. She's debating whether she should open up that advantage or not. Well, Shan takes perfect opportunity with that to say, why would you open it? Why take the risk? Let's just leave it alone for right now. We can always open it a little bit later, decide what we want to do. Shan does not want Jeannie to open this thing up, because if Jeannie gains immunity idol, well, now either her or Ricard could be in trouble. I get it from Shan's point of view. I don't get it so much from Jeannie's point of view. So Jeannie agrees with that. We'll just leave it. I'm just going to set it right here. We'll decide later. Well, that's the other thing I take a little bit of issue with. Even if you decide not to use it, carry it with you. Hide it or do something else. Jeannie doesn't do that. Jeannie is such an honest, trusting individual. Maybe not the best suited for playing the cutthroat game that Survivor is, but that's very much who Jeannie is. She leaves it right there. We see a little bit later that she's swimming out in the ocean, and while she's doing that, Shan says, "Hey, let's go ahead and open it anyway. She doesn't have to know. Why don't we open it and get that advantage? And she does just that. And when I say we, I really mean me, Shan. She's saying, let me open that thing up. She convinces Ricard to go along. She opens it up, and sure enough, it's the three-way idol advantage sheet. Now, here's the thing: since Shan opened it up, she potentially owns this immunity idol. But until all three of these advantages or the little goofy phrases are read out at the challenge, until that happens, Shan doesn't get to vote at tribal council. And so with that in mind, she goes ahead and gives this extra vote that she got from JD. She's now turning around and giving it to Ricard. Have we ever had a season where these advantages get passed around as much as we're seeing right now? She passes it over to Ricard to hold on to. I don't really get why she did it right now. Why not wait until after the immunity challenge to see if all three have been read out or not, to see if she actually does lose her vote or not? Because if you don't lose your vote, why hand it over to anyone else? But she does it again. It's trying to, I guess, buy some trust with some other people and such. So she hands her extra vote over to Ricard as they realize that she doesn't have a vote until the immunity idol actually comes into play. So we've got that. But there's more than that just in terms of schemes that are going on this week. Since Shan can't vote until all three advantage holders all give out their little goofy statements at the next challenge, they realize that in order for this thing to come into play, they're going to have to read out that phrase no matter what, which obviously now is going to alert Jeannie, make her a little cautious, a little suspect if they suddenly see if she sees Shan reading this out. So they have to figure out how they can read it out without making Jeannie suspicious. So she and Ricard come up with this grand plan that they're going to convince Jeannie that Shan should go ahead and say the special saying about broccoli being just little trees. Go ahead and say it, even though they haven't actually opened up the advantage, just to see if the other two tribes also read their little advantages out and think that they have an immunity idol. So Ricard makes a mention of this. Jeannie sits there and says, well, that's pretty smart. That's brilliant. Well, yeah, it is. Unfortunately, not quite the way you imagine, Jeannie. But she agrees with it. She's decided to go along as well. Jeannie is getting so played by these two. I kind of hate to see it, but I got to say I applaud the gameplay that we're seeing from Ricard and Shan and the devious little nature. Can I also say how much I like the fact that Shan mentioned last week, the week before, that she does this? So she hums to herself whenever she wants to play the evil villain type role. It always reminds me of the Wicked Witch music from Wizard of Oz or something. But she's got her own little theme song. Well, now Survivor's playing along because we can hear his background music when she's doing some of her devious planning. So I gotta say I'm enjoying some of the game plan we're seeing, but I kind of feel sorry for Jenny because she is getting played. So that's what's going on over at Team UA. Let's talk about Team Lulu. Team Lulu has all 6 players still in play. They really haven't had to face a stress. It's tough because yes, they're strong, they're powerful, but this team doesn't really know who they can and can't trust until you get to the first tribal council vote or two. If they stay strong, once it gets to the merger point or tribe swaps and all of that, I think the people on this tribe are going to be a little bit at a disadvantage because they just haven't had a test by fire, so to speak, about who they really can depend on and who they haven't, because they haven't had to vote anyone out yet. So we'll see how that plays out. But on to Team Lulu. Danny is still talking to Deshawn about wanting to throw the next immunity challenge in order to get out Erica. I said last week when they talked about this, I don't really ever agree with throwing a challenge to intentionally weaken a tribe. This week, I'm still of that opinion. But on the other hand, as they continue to get stronger and stronger, other teams continue to get weaker. I guess I can see the viewpoint that maybe you do get rid of some of the people that you don't know that you can trust. But on the other hand, Erica, even if they don't trust her, she still has to be someone they can trust more than people that aren't even on their tribe, right? So I don't know that I'm quite bought into the idea yet, but Danny's still pushing it. Said, let's throw it. Let's get out Erica. We know we can't count her and all of that. But in addition to these two, they've also brought in Nasir, and they've talked to Nasir about the same thing. Let's throw this competition. Let's get Erica out. Nasir's not a huge. I don't think he's a huge supporter of Erica either, but he's really opposed to throwing a challenge. He doesn't like the idea of weakening a tribe. Nasir not. He's my other winner pick, and I don't know that Nasir's not played a perfect game, but I certainly can empathize with what Nasir's going through, because here's the thing. Nasir's been approached by Danny and Deshawn. He doesn't like the idea that they want to throw the challenge, but he really likes the idea that the two of them have come to him and are making him part of their group. He really wants to have a connection. I think Nasir's probably felt a little isolated in this tribe. We've seen it in past episodes where he's sitting off by himself. So for him to suddenly have two of the stronger guys approaching him and trying to bring him in, it's got Nasir very excited. He's liking the idea of working with these two, even if he doesn't like throwing the challenge. But he better be careful, because as much as he likes the idea of working with Danny and Deshawn, the reality is they don't have any loyalty to Nasir. They're counting on him as a number. They'll cut him loose as soon as they get a chance. So he's got to be careful about how closely he works with them, how much information he potentially provides to them. Keep that in mind when we're talking about information and such as we go on down the road. So here's the thing. Nasir and Jeannie, they're both kind of making the same mistake. And that is this, thinking that they're an equal partner in a trio when they're joining up with a very tight duo that's already been established. Anytime you do that, you're going to be at the bottom of the pecking order. And Nasir and Jeannie both, maybe it's out of necessity. Maybe they do realize it, but there's certainly, I hope they understand that there's not equality between these three these trios, either one of them. All right, and then finally on the Team Yase, we've got Evie and Heather and Liana. They're really the three type members. The three women are pretty much running this tribe. But Evie, trying to cover all her bases, Evie is also trying to stay tight with Xander. And unfortunately, as she talks to Xander and is trying to keep that relationship going, Tiffany and Liana are noticing that she's staying tight with them. And it's causing them not to trust Evie at all. And as a result, it's looking more and more like we probably have we're probably having Evie kind of distance away from, I said Heather, I think I meant Tiffany. We kind of have Tiffany and Liana being the tight two more so than Evie herself, because they're just starting to not trust her. And with that lack of trust, things that happen on this show. With that lack of trust, Tiffany is standing guard while Liana goes through Xander's bag, and she has found not just his three-way immunity idol advantage, but she's also found his extra vote. So there's no secrets that Xander is holding at this point in time. Liana and Tiffany now know about it, and they now know as well that because they've read the three-way immunity idol, they know that not only does he have these advantages, but he also has lost his opportunity to vote until that three-way immunity idol is put into place. So they certainly understand at this point Xander is vulnerable. If they should happen to make it to tribal council, he doesn't have a vote to help protect himself. We'll see if that comes into play. But Xander, I don't know if he understands or suspects that something's gone on, because at this point in time, just a little bit later, it's hard to tell timelines there, but shortly after, Xander has decided to come clean, sort of, kind of, as much as he feels like he can get away with. He's holding information, but he's kind of decided to come clean. He tells Tiffany. Now, he doesn't tell Liana. He's not telling everyone, but he tells Tiffany, says, look, just so you know, I found this little three-way immunity idol advantage today, and I just, because we're so tight, Tiffany, I want to make sure that you and I are staying close together, so I wanted to tell you about it. Well, as he starts talking about what it is, saying he has to say these goofy phrases and all of that, I think Xander's phrase is about butterflies or just dead people floating around or something. Well, Tiffany says, you said that at the last challenge, right? And he realizes he's been caught, that he didn't actually discover it today. He says, no, it wasn't actually today. It was a little while back. He's been caught, and so he has told her, but I don't think it's helping develop the relationship. Tiffany already understands it, that he's only saying it because he feels like he was caught and that there's not really a lot of trust between the two of those. But they know about it. And now Xander knows that they know about it. So there's the recap of all the tribes. Let's move on to the challenge itself. Now, some weeks we've got a reward challenge, and then we've got an immunity challenge. Not this week. Today, it's playing for all the marbles all at once. It's a combination reward and immunity challenge. And we quickly discover that the top two tribes that win this thing, first and second, are going to get tarps. One's a big tarp, one's a little baby tarp. But hey, any tarp's better than no tarp, right? When you're exposed to the elements. So the top two teams get tarps, but more importantly, they get safety, because as with past weeks, it's only the last place tribe that's sending someone to immunity council. We're losing one tribe member this week. So we've got that in place. Jeff Probst starts off with a little conversation about how everyone's doing. And almost immediately, as per plan, Shan mentions about broccolis are just little trees, and Jeannie knew she was going to do it. She's not suspicious. She should be, but she's not suspicious. I got to wonder what the other people on these tribes are thinking that don't know about this immunity idol advantage. When you hear the people talking over and over again about broccoli and butterflies and such, I got to think people are truly losing some sanity, right? I think I would be wondering what in the heck was going on. But Shan makes her little comment, and then Xander responds and talks about butterflies being just people flying around and stuff. And we think that's it. Lulu, I don't understand why they didn't continue to look for their advantages. Evie had already told, who did she tell? I can't remember who she told. I think Danny, I believe, had said that, we've there's an advantage out there floating around. It may have been Deshaun. Anyway, but it doesn't appear that anyone necessarily had been looking for this idol. So we think we've got another week where the immunity idol isn't going to come into play until Nasir speaks up, and Nasir gives the golden phrase that puts these idols in play. He mentioned something about, I'm as confused as a goat on AstroTurf. I bet these writers have a blast coming up with these phrases. He says the magic phrase, and at that point we get a flashback, and we discover that Nasir had found the advantage the day before. He understands what's happening. Now, Nasir, he's smart. He hasn't told anyone else about that he's found this. So he's keeping it to himself, as he should. But now we've got a member from each of the three tribes who've all muttered their special phrase. So now all three of these people get their votes back. They also each have an immunity idol that they can play, I think, up until there's 6 people left in the game. So we've got 3 powerful immunity idols at play. I'm curious to see what's going to happen with that. So the immunity, or the challenge itself, involves climbing up a net, going across a net as a team. At that point, they have to untangle the rope. It's not knotted up, it's just twisted up, but they have to untangle a rope by sliding some blocks at the bottom. Typical kind of Survivor. I love these challenges. They have to untangle the rope to release a key. The key unlocks a machete. A machete cuts a rope. Rope frees up a bunch of sandbags, and then they fire these sandbags at some fairly giant targets that are 50, 60 feet away. First tribe to knock 3 targets over wins immunity, wins the big tarp. Second one gets a small tarp, but at least they're not sending anyone to tribal challenge. And then the last place team, tribal council, you go. Well, it's interesting. We saw it last week a little bit. Nasir really doesn't want to throw the challenge, so he's kind of taking the lead with Team Lulu in terms of this competition, and he's doing well. He's dominating. He's untangling the ropes. He's firing at the targets, knocking a lot of them over. He's really contributing quite a bit. But in the end, Team Yase, primarily because of the play of Xander, ends up winning. He shot down those targets fairly quickly. Team Yase wins the big tarp. They win safety. But Team Lulu, yet again, comes in second place. So they're not sending anyone else to tribal council. They're still going to be 6 strong. They haven't thrown the competition. They haven't lost the competition. So Erica's safe, and all is good with Team Lulu for now. So we've got that, which means, unfortunately, poor old Team Ua. Team Ua is going to tribal council yet again. It wasn't enough to go from 4 to 3. Now they're going from 3 people to 2 people. This is going to be a tribe of 2. And Jeannie is in trouble. If she had only held on to that immunity idol advantage, it's now in play. But unfortunately, Shan owns it instead of Jeannie does. I don't think Jeannie even understands that. She doesn't realize that such is the case. And I'm afraid she's going to pay the price for it. But first, we've got I think I've heard that phrase before. But first, we've got yet another twist, another little journey that has to be made. In this case, Team Yase as winners decide. They get to pick one person from the losing tribe, which they immediately, Evie mainly is the one says, Shan. From the losing tribe, we're going to pick Shan. Gets to go on a journey with someone from one of the other two tribes, either Team Yase or Team Lulu. And at that point, we basically have Liana has volunteered to go as well. So we've got Liana and Shan going on this special little journey. We've seen this happen before. Now, I think it was smart of Evie. As soon as it's mentioned that you need to pick someone from the losing tribe, Evie immediately says, I think it should be Shan. So she's kind of taken control of the situation and made sure that her person gets to go. I think Evie's playing a pretty smart game as well, although she's got created a little suspicion with Tiffany and Liana. But anyway, we've got Shan and Liana going on their special little journey, heading back over to the island, going up a hill, and they're talking to each other quite a bit. Now here, before we talk about that, let's talk about Shan going on this journey. Shan knows from past episodes or past days that she has the opportunity to gain an advantage right now. But on the other hand, we've got a tribe of 3 getting ready to go to tribal council. Shan is not with Ricard and Jeannie. How much, if you're going off of this journey, how much are you trusting the other 2 to not be talking and planning and potentially developing bonds with each other that's going to hurt your game, that may result in you getting sent home? So it's kind of a double-edged sword for Shan. Yes, she has a possibility of an advantage, but she really is going to miss out not having those times and not being able to keep in the face of these other 2 and make sure they aren't plotting against her. So we'll see how that plays out. But so Shan may obtain the power. We'll find out. But she does have the idol. She does have the idol in play. She just doesn't want to play it right now. But if she feels like the other 2 are conspiring against her, she may be forced to. All right. We see as they're walking up the hill, Liana and Shan are talking. They seem like they're really bonding very quickly, very tightly with each other. Liana's telling Shan all about Xander having the extra vote and the immunity idol for Team Lulu. So no secrets with her. She's spilling the beans. And Shan, in turn, reveals back to Liana, says, look, I've got that 3-way advantage immunity idol. I'm the one holding it for my tribe. I don't want to use it now, but I'm holding on to it. But please don't tell anyone else. And Liana said, nah, I won't tell a soul. The fact they're spilling so much information to each other is always a good sign that they truly do trust each other. They're not holding anything back. And at the end, they've decided to work together until the very end. Once the tribe swap, the merge occurs, they're going to be watching out for each other. That's the most advantageous part. Don't forget the advantages. Those are important. But I think even more so than the advantages that you may gain during these trips, I think the big advantage is the ability to develop a relationship with someone from another tribe and reach some agreements about watching out for each other. I think that's huge. I think that's going to come into play very quickly as we get closer to some kind of merge or swap or something else. So we've got that. Now, here's what's interesting. Little foreboding, little foreshadowing. Shan tells Liana, says, look, if you come back, if by the time we get to merge, if I'm not here, then do not trust Ricard, because Ricard and I are super tight. So that means if I'm not here, it means Ricard flipped on me, betrayed me. So if that happens, do not trust Ricard. Keep that in mind. And now we've got on to the decision making. As with previous episodes, they each have to decide whether they're going to risk their vote or they're going to protect their vote. If they both decide to risk their vote, then they both lose their votes. If they both decide to protect their vote, then nothing at all happens. They go back and there's no change whatsoever. If one votes to protect, one votes to risk, then the one who votes to risk gains. In the past, it's been an extra vote. We'll see what it is today. So that's the decision that needs to be made. Shan says, I can't afford to give up my vote right now. I'm going to tribal council. There's only 3 of us. I can't not vote. So I'm going to protect my vote. You ought to go ahead and risk yours so you can get this advantage. And they agree to it. So Liana risks her vote. She gains an advantage. Once she gets back to her tribe and checks her tree mail, she realizes it's not an extra vote. It's knowledge. It's the power of knowledge. And it's set up in this way. This advantage gives her the opportunity at tribal council. She can ask one person one question. And that question is either, do you have an advantage or do you have an idol? And they have to tell the truth. They have to tell her if they do. If they don't, then nothing else happens. If they do have whichever one of those she asked about, if they do have it, they have to give it to her. That's huge. That is a gigantic power that we really haven't seen in Survivor before. So potentially, she can ask someone at tribal council, do you have an immunity idol? Yes, I do. Well, now you don't anymore. Hand it to me. I now have it. I got to say, I normally like the twist in Survivor and the games and all the changes it makes in strategy. I'm not sure I'm a huge fan of this particular twist. I think it is too powerful. I like the idea that if you find an immunity idol, you know beyond any doubt that you are protected when you go to tribal council if you choose to play that idol. That's not the case anymore. You can feel like you are the most secure person in the world. You get to tribal council. Not only do you potentially have to give it up, but now you have to give it to someone else who now has absolute protection that particular week. I think that's too much of a change in terms of power structure. I get it. It's going to be a huge surprise blindside moment that they're going to love to film and show on some future episode. We know this is going to it's going to completely ruin someone's game, right? And completely change everything about some tribal episode down the road, which is what Survivor producers want. I get it. I just think it's too much power. We'll see what happens on down the road. But that Liana's looking, what a power to have. Now she's got to make sure before she has to go, because she can only ask it once. So she better make sure she really knows who has that idol or advantage before she asks the question. But this could be huge for her. So now, with all that going on, right before tribal council, let's have a little discussion about Team Ua. 3 people, they're getting ready to send home 33%, 33 and a third percent of their people to off the island. We've got Ricard talking to Jeannie, and he's saying he's doing everything he can to make it sound like Shan is the big target. He wants Jeannie to feel extremely comfortable that she's not going home, that they both need to team up against Shan, and she seems to be buying it. She's saying, look, I'll vote out Shan. It works to Ricard's advantage. If he convinces Jeannie that he's voting out Shan, then if he can convince her to as well, then he's protected no matter what happens, everything else. But his plan is still to evict Jeannie, and that's no surprise to anyone else. But Jeannie is very much thinking, she's got her own game plan going on. She's thinking, Ricard's saying all this stuff to me. I'm going to say, yeah, I'm voting for Shan as well. But, isn't he going to be surprised because I'm actually going to vote against him instead? We're going to send you home, Ricard. Well, there's a bunch of different actions in play right now. So here's the problem. Once Shan gets back from her little journey, Shan wants her extra vote back from Ricard that she gave him to hold on to. That's what happens when you give it to someone to hold on to before you know what's happening in terms of immunity, tribal council, and all of that. She just should have never given it to him in the first place, but she did. And now she's asking for it back, which makes Ricard incredibly paranoid. Why would she be asking for it back if she's planning to keep me? Well, I get why she wants it back, but I also understand why he's paranoid. Eventually, you see a lot of distrust being formed between 2 of these. Shan saying, if you're planning to send Jeannie home instead of me, then why are you so insistent on holding on to this advantage? And him saying, well, if you're intending to send Jeannie home, then why are you so insistent on getting this thing back before tribal council? So these 2 people who've been so tight with each other, suddenly now they're very, very suspicious, very paranoid of each other. And it all could have been averted if she just hadn't offered up the idol to him or the advantage in the first place. But what's done is done. And now we're seeing some distrust. And I don't know how much of this is true, how much of this was just a very short little conversation and all was good afterwards, but it certainly builds up a little more drama and suspense when we get to to tribal council itself. But at the end, eventually Ricard says, look, because she says, are you just not going to give this back to me? He says, no, look, here, I'll give it back to you, but I'll give it back to you after tribal council. Once you and I are both here, we know that we're safe. I'll give it back to you at that point in time. You just have to trust me on that. He thinks it's going to protect him a little bit. Ricard figures if as long as he's holding on to this advantage, Shan is going to be that much less likely or willing to send him out the door, because then she knows that the advantage goes away. So he's using it as a bit of protection. And it's probably a good strategy. So at Tribal, we finally have approached Tribal. Can you believe it's only an hour-long show? We finally reached Tribal, and it's all about who is lying to who. We've got three people. Well, of course, one person's always going to tell the other person that they're voting out the third person. Then they're going to tell the third person that, oh, no, I'm actually voting out this. Everyone's lying to each other as much as they can. But here's the thing. At the end of the day, with only three people, especially, you can't control the votes of the other two people. You have to hope and assume that they're not plotting, they're not conspiring against you. But if they are, there's probably not a lot you can do right now. You have one vote only. I think at the end of the day, all the plotting, all the conspiring has already taken place. Once it gets time to the vote, you've got to, each of these three people have to be voting for who they think is going to least help them advancing in the game, be the person they least trust to work with them going forward. That's who each of these people should be voting to send out the door. And so we get to the point of voting. Right before the votes are read, Jeff asked everyone, is there anyone who wants to play an advantage or an idol or anything else? Well, if Jeannie had her idol, this would be a perfect place to play it. But alas, she doesn't. Shan feels safe enough at this point in time that she doesn't play her immunity idol either, which is a little risky, but I agree with her decision. And we have the votes. And by a vote of 2-1, Jeannie is voted off the island. I was going to say out the door, but not so much. She's voted off the island. She shouldn't have been surprised. Certainly as viewers, I don't think any of us were surprised. As I said at the very beginning, she had to know she was at the bottom of the pecking order. I don't care what people say to you. She should have known. I'm not sure she did. But at this point, there really was, once she did not use that advantage, once she didn't read it out herself, once someone else took control of that, there really wasn't much that Jeannie could do. She could have rolled her die, that 1 in 6 chance of gaining immunity at the last minute. I can't believe we haven't seen that happen yet. Every person who's gotten voted off has felt secure enough in their position that they didn't think that they wanted to take that Hail Mary shot and try to save themselves. Obviously, it was a mistake by Jeannie, but I really think she shouldn't have been thinking nearly as much that she was safe as apparently she did. She should have rolled that die, but she didn't. Jeannie's out the door. I just don't know that Jeannie is quite cutthroat enough for this game. She's a wonderful person. Ricard makes a mention of that. Says, look, she's honest. She's truthful. She's great. She's friendly. All kinds of things that make you a wonderful person in the real world. In the game of Survivor, sometimes it can actually work as a disadvantage. And it did it in this place. Jeannie is out the door. And again, I think her biggest mistake was not using that advantage while she had the chance. Even worse, not only did she not use it, but she let the other two know about it, and she left it where potentially one of them could grab it and take control, which is exactly what they did. So props to Jeannie for the game she played, but not quite what it took to make it to the end. So here's the thing. We're now down to 2 people in this tribe. How much further are we going to go? We see a little teaser at the end that maybe things are getting ready to change. I don't know if it's a merger or swap. Maybe these two just get sent out to the other 2 tribes. I don't know yet, but something's got to change, I think. So there you have it, guys. Again, only an hour, but a lot of action happening, and I'm really excited to see what happens next week. But until then, guys, y'all have a fantastic week. I'll check in again next week, and we'll see what happens in episode 6. Cheers, my friends. SKD143. Bye.